All right. So again, welcome to today's presentation hosted by Advaiya. We are going to be covering two really main concepts on moving to a piece of cloud technology. So on one side of the tracks, right, you have people who are still operating their businesses from what we call traditional on-premise environments. So they have their servers, they have information on site, and in the day and age of digital transformation, you have really companies gaining competitive advantages by moving to the cloud by interconnecting all of their systems together and streamlining, getting rid of paper and manual processes. And so all of that sounds well and good. There's obvious cost advantages and experience advantages to moving to the cloud, but people are very fearful of what exactly happens. So how do I evaluate this piece of technology? How do I ensure that when I move to that, I know that I have the right solution coming into my organization? And then, secondly, how do I get there? Right? Maybe I know about the cloud. Maybe I understand generally what it is, but how do I get there? How do I move not only my systems and my infrastructure, but how do I basically get the whole company to get on board with a solution like this? And so that's what we're going to be covering today. It's very relevant, especially with so many people working from home. Is those who have already made this transition find themselves in a very strong position to be securely working from home while others are struggling, right? And so that's just one example, um, but it's the reality. And so who I am, I've been in the Microsoft community for a while now, mainly on the reporting and analytics side. I'm working with Advaiya now, and what I do is I really ensure that we deliver the right solution on time to our customers. And so I act as that liaison between our customers and our delivery teams. And really, I personally will be missing all of the in-person events that normally happen around this time of year. And for those of you who may have attended those, you just know the heart of them is to make sure that your jobs are easier. And that's really what my heart is today, is just to, for those of you who are on the call who have either one already moved to a piece of cloud technology or you're considering the move, I just want to make your life easier, help you know what questions to ask and how to move from theory to actuality. And so, um, who Advaya is, we are a Microsoft Gold partner. Okay. And for those of you who don't know what that means, you can be certified in very specific things. And so, cloud, platform productivity, analytics, project, and portfolio management. That's where we are the gold standard according to Microsoft. And so, we've been in business since 2005, over 1,000 client projects completed. And we have deep and broad expertise across the entire Microsoft stack. So whether it's Azure, Microsoft 365, Power Platform, many of you may be using Power BI already, but there's a whole platform that's associated with that. So just know that's who we are. And I'm not going to dive too deep into this yet, but just to give you a little hint, is when decision making is being guided from a customer first or vendor first perspective, but it's being driven by data that's accurate and governed, um, that is when we're going to see a shift. That's when businesses see their shift. And so, you know, most companies, why is it that they struggle with even some of the simplest reports or dashboards when it's clearly is something of the most importance? I mean, we'll touch on that, but just know that's who we are. This is why we're here today, and who we've served in the past is really a myriad of different customers. Okay, so we've have everyone from Microsoft specifically. They've asked us to come in and build reports and dashboards to Google. You even have Coca-Cola up there, soon to be Disney. We've helped large scale, companies, but also really small mom and pop shops or privately held construction, nonprofit, financial type firms. So we're a smaller company by choice because what we want to do is we want to be nimble, we want to be quick to respond, and we want to make sure you have that personalized attention that you're looking for, especially in a transition as important from on-premise to cloud. So that's really who we are. Our agenda, most common challenges with a new ERP, how to cut costs and maximize efficiencies, really covering the two main concepts we talked about. Where are we going? So what is digital transformation? How do we get there? What is data migration? And if I was going to be moving today, what are those outcomes you should expect to see? And although we're not covering one specific product per se, it is a generalized concept. Is that you need a roadmap to guide you through this, right? So, and then how would Advaiya help us, right? So when we talk about a roadmap, I liken it to, for any of you who've been in the outdoors or know about fishing trips or guided hikes or anything along those lines, like an instructor or someone who knows what they're doing. It is a much more enjoyable and relaxing experience when you have someone who's been there. They know what spots to fish. They know where to stop and take pictures. They know where good places to break for lunch are, whatever it might be. And that's really why we have this outline. Is we have phases and outputs, but there's not just one set of skills required to go from point A to point B. As you can see, you have application analysis, architecture design, and cloud services support. So not only from the accessing and planning phase, but all the way to the management and long-term success of this digital transformation, we have those skills and those people in place here at Advaiya to make sure you're taken care of. And so this really, what this does, it makes sure we're all on the same page. You may have, operations, your ops team, they're focused on some set of outcomes, and you have your maybe sales and marketing team, maybe they're focused on another set of outcomes, but we're all going and pulling in the same direction, right? We're not having one go off and do their own app or one go off and do their own third party kind of solution. The idea is you work with an organization that takes the holistic approach and asks the right questions. So again, for us, the product roadmap, it's not really meant to be panacea. It's more of a guide. But if we begin with a customer focused vision and we incorporate input from the key stakeholders, focus on the high level priorities, be agile, don't get too far into the weeds. It's one of the most common mistakes is we get so far down a rabbit hole. But make sure we're presenting this to your stakeholders, and that when we're doing all of this, it allows us to choose the right tool for you. So what are the reasons some of these implementations run into roadblocks, or there's something that arises that makes you question whether or not it was the right decision? Well, primarily it's lack of involvement from management specifically. Now, a new ERP, what is that, once, maybe every 5 to 10 years? It doesn't happen often. And it requires everyone's involvement. So if we're looking at a new system, we need to know who is it touching. The incomplete strategy is solved by a good roadmap. And it's very easy to have an incomplete strategy when you're not really sure what questions to ask. You've never done this before, right? So having a good guide on this journey is super important. And then data quality issues. So when we talk about data migration, it's not just the system, it could be your reports. Most of the time, the underlying hidden cost of moving a system is your reports. It's your reports, your dashboards, your P&L, your cash flow, your regulatory reports, depending on your industry. So The data quality issue is something that comes up, and it's never intentional. Like nobody goes into business or creates a new workflow in their um, purchase order or invoicing process just to down the road hopefully run into a data quality issue. It's never intentional, right? But it happens. So you have dissimilar data structures, which we'll get into in a later slide. And the average business person does not know how to navigate that, right? If they're going back to rebuild the reports, it just none of the data sets or tables are the same. And so how do you get around that? How do you avoid sinking 25% of your total costs into reporting and dashboarding when you're doing a new ERP or moving to cloud? How do you do that, right? So we'll cover that. So first and foremost, when we're talking about what system are you going to move to, again, it's about asking the right questions. This is somewhat similar to the earlier slide, but as you can see, what we're doing is asking how does it apply specifically, and what is it that we can move there, right? And I'll have a more detailed slide right after this, but that's the idea: is you're moving from a planning to a setup to a migration to a management stage. But if you're not sure what questions to ask other than how do we know it's right for us, or how do we make it smooth, or how do we operate afterwards, it's going to be very tough. And so that is why a Microsoft partner, if you're looking at Microsoft technology, is very important. Um, or even if you're looking outside of that, if you're looking at a Salesforce, or you're wanting to integrate something from Google Analytics or Google Sheets, or you're wanting multiple data sources to be involved in this transition, or you want to streamline your forecasting and budgeting because sales have dropped. Those are the most common things that we see during a transition like this. So this is why all of our customers are referenceable. We're not in a rush to obviously just sell some kind of software. We're in the business of making technology work for you, and this is how you do it. Next is the suitability analysis. So what we're doing is we're critically thinking about who's going to be touched by this change, right? Is it just the high level stakeholders, right? Is it just something that's going to be affecting them? Chances are very small that's not the case. Is it just operations? Is it sales? Is it finance? Right? Is the CFO going to be impacted by this change? And so, is it maybe just our customers? Is it our vendors? And so, who would need to receive training on this? Right? Are they a quick study? Do they have technological background? Do they have the bandwidth to take on this new challenge? Who are the experts going to be, right? And so what we want to do is we want to work through not only the technical aspects, but what are the interviews like? When we're talking to people who are going to be impacted by this change, what are their feelings? What are their concerns? What are their questions? And this is where we begin to say, okay, is the application a good fit? Is cloud migration viable? Are these really a true vision for your organization? And so when they are, we obviously move into the recommendation stage. We start talking about how we're going to do that, how we're going to back up your systems. And so, especially when I talk to people who maybe have owned a business for decades, right? They've owned it for 30 years. Everything's still manual. The fear is all of their organization, it lives in one place, right? Like if something were to happen to that one place, God forbid, whether it be a natural disaster or what have you, are they going to lose everything? And so bridging the gap between that being safe and the cloud not being safe is really the challenge. And so just know, when you're moving these systems, there's always backup. There's always fail safes. There's always ways to get access to that information, but now you're not all in one place, right? So when you've made that decision, we move from point A to point B. right? So another thing that a lot of people, uh, organizations have is reports. So you have your P&L you use every month, you have your cash flow you use every month, you have whatever it might be, inventory, right? You have lease information. So you have these things that you're using on a regular basis. And when you move to a new system, nothing's the same. The reporting tool is not even the same, right? And so in our case, when we have, for example, if we're moving from something like an on-premise Dynamics GP, we're considering a new cloud environment. Well, Power BI is a great way to visualize data, but it's not going to organize my data sets. I'm not going to be able to go in and know, you know, like in GP, the customer master summary is like RM00103. And then I'm going to have to know what field that has in common with another table to create a sales report. I mean, that's just not feasible. And so what we need to do is start rethinking, how do I prepare for this ahead of time? Okay. Because we've analyzed thousands of Dynamics deployments, and 25% of the cost is in the report writing, rewriting all of those reports. And we've covered a lot of this other stuff, which is very, very important, but report writing should not be the biggest cost of a migration. There's a solution for this that not only is portable, but it will keep you secure long term for the future. And again, this is just one example. The GP on-premise Dynamics GP, maybe to Business Central, is what I have here. And this is from a presentation I was asked to do at a Microsoft conference, I think last year. But so in one system, you have segmentation. Really, it's just the dashes. You have a natural account in the middle, you have some dashes, and the number on the front end and the number on the back end are called segments. What they're doing is they're uniquely representing that natural account. So instead of just sales, you have retail parts or finished goods, which is important. Dimensions are the same thing as segments in Business Central. So dimensions, they're actually words. So you have a company here, USA, copper, and so it's not even a number. So how am I supposed to get all of my historical reports to communicate with this new system? Right? That's why the cost is so high when you're moving from one to another, is the data sets are so dissimilar that you have to restart if you're not thinking about this ahead of time. Right? So, what is the solution? How do I not only get myself from this point on premise to the next phase, but what if I want to make a change in the future? What if I want to incorporate a new system? What if I grow? What if I add a location? What if I acquire another company and they have different systems? How do I manage this? Right? So, the solution is data warehousing, master data management. So this term master data management is something I'm seeing more and more. I've been aware of organizations moving to this for a long time, but most companies, the struggle in reporting is not Power BI, right? Power BI is a great data visualization tool. The struggle is, how do I get my data from these multiple systems? How do I move it and extract it into a centralized location that's in plain English for the people who are consuming the information to make sense of, right? And so back in the day, it was just IT analysts. They would go in, they would create SQL views, they do very intricate coding, move this over, and then 6 months later, you have this really great dashboard or report. But unfortunately, it's 6 months later or 3 months later, depending on the speed or size of your IT staff. This is why organizations are paying six figures on staff to do this stuff. Now, you can always have someone managing this, but it's never going to be flexible if you're rebuilding from scratch these reports every single time, nor is it going to be fast. So the ETL process is extract, transform, and load. longest, most time consuming, and riskiest part of moving information. So if I'm extracting it, I'm transforming it, I'm loading it into somewhere. So let's say GP, for example, will have a legacy database. We'll have our CRM, which is Salesforce or Microsoft CRM or Sugar CRM or something, and then you have the new system, right? And so we want all of this to mash together. We want to organize it. We want to make sense of it, and then we want to secure it in a data warehouse. Now, data lakes also live in Azure. You have data warehousing, but it all resides on the backbone of analysis services, which is row level security, ensuring that if someone gets access to the information, that they only see what they're allowed to see, regardless of the system, by the way. It's another very key challenge is, let's say someone has security privileges in CRM, but they shouldn't have the same in Business Central. Well, analysis services allows us to define that at the reporting and analytical level. So even if they can enter it here, they can't view it on the outside. So just know, once you have this in place, right, you have the backbone of your data structure. Now you can drive your digital transformation off of accurate, secure, relevant, and flexible information, right? And so that's the dream. And then being able to visualize it on really any of these options you have, reporting, Power BI, which we love, by the way. And so this is really master data management. You're taking one version of the truth, you're moving it with your organization no matter where you go, and it's driving your outcomes for the future. So again, tailored digital transformation, that's really what it's about today. And the idea is to provide this intelligence faster so that it's more relevant. It mitigates your risk and allows really our customers to relax, knowing that we have the tools and knowledge to simply just make things better. Whether it's for, again, your employees, your customers, but starting big picture is really where we want to begin. We want to know, what are your KPIs, or what do you think your key performance indicators are? What are those reports that are massively critical? Where are they coming from? How do they impact the bottom line? And now we can have a strong plan for transforming the organization as a whole, right? And you become an extension of us, right? We are successful when you are successful. So last couple slides, we're going to talk about briefly. So migration, really what we're doing is we're operating from that roadmap in buckets, right? So we have workloads, we have stages. Each of those buckets is going to have kind of that winner who is kind of leading the charge within your organization. And then on our side, it'd be someone like me, making sure that the project is being handled effectively. And then you have everything from development to staging and so on and so forth. But migration, once we've made the decision on where to go, this is where we move to next. And then finally, validation, right? So we want to know, am I compliant, right? If you have regulatory compliance, do I have, the proper security built in? Do I have the ability to test changes? What about validating, my information if it already lives in Azure? What are those things that I need to do to validate and rest assured that we have made the right choice? And so that's really the final stage of gaining that real true competitive advantage by moving to the cloud. Is the whole idea is set it and forget it, right? We want to know that it's working and I don't have to circle back in 6 months on something like this. So our technology expertise, you can see it up here. It's not limited, obviously, just to Microsoft, but I can tell you from what I have seen, our team can almost do any of the concepts that are up here at a very, very high level. So Visual Studio, SQL Server we covered today, 365, Power BI, SharePoint's another very, very strong one here. Project management, And then we have ClickUp here, but obviously using Power BI is kind of the preferred methodology. But our unique blend of skills really set us apart. We're really led to um, be the best of two worlds. One is advisors, so making sure that you have the right solution being offered to you, that you're educated on what is out there, and then also being there long term. So not just selling a piece of software, whether or not we, you know, are implementing anything new. It's just simply about making your technology and your business work for you, especially in this day and age. There's so many changes taking place in all types of industries. So just know, this is kind of the beginning of a series we're going to be continuing. But what's next? I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions. But we really want just to make sure we're empowering and educating folks who are here today. And so hopefully you were able to take something away from that. I know in some cases the cloud is scary or daunting, or you're not sure of where to start. And so we're more than happy to be that sounding board, even if you've already purchased a separate piece of technology. So I'm going to take a look and see if there's any questions in the chat. Let's take a look here. Looks like I had one question sent to me. Can't really see that very well. It's odd. So yeah, if you already have reports in Excel, how easy would it be to move those to a new system? Honestly, it depends on how they're written, right? There's a lot of different tools out there that you can extract information, get it into Excel in a refreshable format, but you want to provide those reports to whoever you're working with on that transition and make sure they understand why the report was written. And if you want any changes, it's a great time to talk about changes. Maybe it's an Excel report you've used for years and you're maybe kind of sick of it. It would be a great time to reconsider maybe using a different platform for that. See, any other questions? Let's see. I don't see any other questions. Usually we have quite a bit more. Maybe something's wrong with the chat here, but this is my email. Right, you obviously have a contact here at Advaiya who invited you to this. So if you have questions, reach out. We're more than happy, 5-10 minute conversation about what you're wanting to do, or if there's a takeaway from this, or you want to intend to future events, just reach out to us. Again, thanks so much for being here. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And hopefully we'll be seeing you in the future on these events. We also do dashboard in a day, so check our website. It's a free training on Power BI. So yeah, we're here for you, especially during this time. So just let us know how we can help. And thanks again so much for being here.